Good evening, Jacob Field speaking. I'm just doing a quick audio and visual check. If you could just confirm in the chat bar that you can see a couple of meerkats in front of you and you can hear me correctly, that would be great. I'll just do a written confirmation in the chat bar right now. Won't be a second. Good evening once again. My name's Jacob Field. Thank you for jumping in there so quickly on the chat bar. Lots of you coming through mentioning that you can see and hear correctly. So big shout outs to Martin, Michael, Haley, Bernie, Adam, Steve, Scott, Rachel, Cam, Karen, Sue. Big shout out to all of you. There's lots more. John, Paul, Bill. Look, I'm coming here tonight. I'm really excited to bring tonight's content to you. It's been something we've been working on for a number of months here within Ripehouse. Putting together content to help answer a lot of questions that you're always coming up with. So I'm just going to be taking things through the new content portal that we've put together tonight. So a little bit different, a little bit unique in terms of the structure. I'm just going to say right now, I've actually been quite sick this week, so forgive me if I'm a little bit slow or off the mark. I will try my best and keep to the hour-long session tonight. So if you've got any issues with audio visual, we are based on the Google Hangouts platform. So you can click the reconnect button down the bottom of your browser, potentially resize the window smaller, and that will bring through a smaller resolution video feed. Close off any other videos, YouTube, etc., any other elements that might be chewing your connection within your house. Worst case scenario, if you are seeing pixelation, etc., all good so far on the reports with visual and audio. But if you are having any issues, try refreshing your browser window as a last resort. Let's jump right in. I've got a poll over on the right-hand side, just asking a quick question. Where are we all listening in from tonight? 6% of you from Tassie. Big shout out. I'm down here in Tassie. We've got the Ripehouse office on Elizabeth Street. New South Wales, 59%, a lot more than last fortnight when we had around 30–40%. 11% from Victoria, 9% from Queensland, 13% from South Australia, a few checking in from Western Australia, none in Northern Territory or ACT. Nice, interesting mix there. Big shout out to all of you, and I really love having you all coming along. And I want you to feel like tonight is a conversation in terms of let's gather up questions and have an extended Q&A session at the end. If you'd like me to do any street or thoughts on an LGA or suburb, I can tell you what we're seeing in terms of the research we're doing in-house, who we've been talking to, how we might be able to help in any way. So do save up all the questions. Don't hesitate in any type of question or query. Get in. I'm happy to go through them all at the end. But the next poll I'm going to actually run now is actually going to drive the content for this evening. So I am going to launch in and introduce the Frontier Investor, which is our new content portal. But I am going to reserve the second half of this evening to running through a case study analysis of a LGA that we've covered in our recent research report. So the second poll that I've got there displayed on the screen now, out of our research report, which was released at the beginning of April, we are very close to our May report coming out with some interesting insights that we've already uncovered. There are 7 LGAs gathered together, which I think are relevant to cover that were in the April report. We have recently done a Moreton Bay in focus and a Gold Coast in focus webcast. So lots of people are interested in investing in those 2 LGAs. We've already covered those off. A huge amount of questions been asked. yeah, if you could just mention on that poll, if you'd like to focus on any of those LGAs in particular, I'll keep that poll running. Do feel free to enter into chat. Bill would like to cover Perth, Karen, City of Okaparinga in South Australia. If there's one or two of you in each of these, I can gather those in the Q&A session. Otherwise, we've got lots of you, 44% looking at wanting to see more information around Hobart, 25% Sunshine Coast at the moment, 17% Bendigo, and a few of you jumping into chat. So keep those coming in throughout this evening. I'll jump into our core content, and the second part we'll go into analysing one of these LGAs that you'd all like to hear about. Just before I go on, a little bit about me. So I've been investing for almost 15 years now. I do own property across the country. I'll describe myself as a DIY property investor and someone who really likes digging a little bit deeper, empowering myself with knowledge, working out how things work, trial and error, potentially making mistakes or in retrospect, things I could have done differently. It's all about learning. It's all about a journey. I love property investment and incredibly passionate about property investment and the investments I do have. And my other love is technology and computers. So Ripehouse is something that I formed in 2011 as something that is an outlet for both of my passions. And it was originally a tool just started for me and helping me invest in the Sydney market, which is somewhere I just moved to 6 or 7 years ago. Didn't know how to invest. I didn't know how to understand things as a local would. So that was the seed planted for creating Ripehouse back in 2011. So yeah, if you'd like to, any questions around the software or areas of interest, anything around my journey or elements that I've learned from or been able to improve, jump in and I'm more than happy to answer in any way. The real content of tonight, let's just have a bit of a summary, a high-level introduction to the Frontier Investor. This is the official, I suppose, launch of the content, although it has been something that has been live as a website for a week or so, getting all the contributors to get all of their content together. We've got an amazing collection of founder contributors providing some really awesome content, excellent storylines already emerging with some absolute gold for the investor to really sink their teeth into. I think this is representative of the new frontier of property investment. So I'm going to go into what I mean by that. That's the title of this evening. What are we seeing in terms of research, technology, elements of the industry that are new and disruptive, that are bringing a new frontier for providing opportunity, and how can we use that opportunity and thrive in the next few years in our property investment journey. So yeah, it's going to be dissecting what I mean by the new frontier and how we can really be one step ahead of that curve. And as I said, the last part, the second element of this evening will be viewer's choice, which LGA will be set up for a detailed analysis. I'll be going down to individual streets, suburbs, and properties in the case study tonight. So we'll give you some real actionable outcomes for whichever LGA we choose. So currently Bendigo, surprisingly, is leading at 23% of investor interest, down to Hobart 18%, Sunshine Coast at 18%, Brisbane 17%. So Bendigo is an interesting one. I'll be really interested to talk about that later. I'm not going to spoil the impartial nature of the poll based on my comments, but it would be an interesting case study about what's happening in a regional centre at the moment. Okay, so feel free to dive right over to the frontierinvestor.com.au. This is our new research and content portal. By that I mean it's really just an online newspaper, completely 100% dedicated to DIY investors. So it's a spruiker-free zone, advertising-free zone, paid editorial-free zone. It's completely impartial. We're happy to take suggestions around content, storylines, contributors. It's really in your court as DIY investors. I want you to feel like you can own this platform of content, really contribute and engage in conversation and make sure we are all getting out of it what we need to. So we've already assembled 13 thought leader contributors, people that I've talked to and become to learn to and become to really respect in my journey as an investor for the last 15 years. And then obviously, particularly since Ripehouse has been formed 5 years ago, these are people who have really stood out to me for their ethics, their integrity, their value proposition, their understanding of the market, the research that they do, and really how they help and have a customer or investor focus. That's probably the key. It's all about the investor and providing real value there. The 13 contributors that we've been able to bring together, we've got another 12 or just under 12 in the pipeline ready to come into the piece as well. So we're really trying to bring in thought leaders from different parts of the industry that can really provide some unique insight and content for us in helping us make clear and confident decisions. So not trying to muddy the waters, not trying to provide a black box that only they have the key and potentially have to pay for, but really providing insightful content that allows us to make clear and confident decisions to move forward. And not try and put these hurdles in the way. So we've already got uploaded 10 pieces of content that's already there, ready and waiting for you to jump across and start sinking your teeth into. Watch out for daily video wrap-ups. So really short snapshots each day, just letting you know what's been put on there. What are some of the storylines that you really want to jump into, and how can you really employ and run with the content that you've been available to you in that 24-hour period. I'm going to be jumping on live or regular live video feeds. So I've been working today with a team about how we can potentially get these live video feeds to you in the place that you need them on your phone as it's happening. So when we're seeing data or research content coming through, any notifications about what's coming through, we're going to be jumping on live with very short little snaps of video just to keep you in the loop. And then watch out for weekly video digests and emails where we're going to be bringing it all together in a unique visual format, which I'm going to be giving you a quick demo of that format in a few moments, guiding you through the journey of the content for that week and how you can potentially implement it and leverage that information. So it's really trying to not be another source of information which might be watered down or conflicting and not allowing you to make clear and concise decisions. We're trying to create pieces of content and storylines and grouping them together to allow you to digest and make action upon. So let's jump right in. I might take you through this last week's in terms of the content that's there, the 10 content pieces. I'll take you through a visual journey of that and we can work through it together. So this is the real core of the first chunk of this evening. Let's dissect what we are seeing in terms of the content on the Frontier Investor for this week. And also I will define what I am seeing as the new frontier of property investment and how we can potentially sit ourselves in front of the wave and that momentum and really be in prime position to benefit from that frontier. So just bear with me one moment. I'm just going to switch over slides. This takes a few seconds. Okay, beautiful. What you should be seeing here is a funny looking week in review down obviously in the bottom left hand corner, but then a funny looking graphical representation on the right hand side of a mind map, this is the groupings of content that we've got this week in the Frontier Investor. I'll take you through a few of the themes, and this is going to be chunked off into a short weekly video. So I won't cover this generally in webcasts. This will be the weekly digests over on the Frontier Investor. But tonight I'm just going to take you through it because at the same time I'm really going to be drawing your attention about how you can use elements or new emergent parts of the industry, some real thought leaders to supercharge you in the new frontier of property investment. So let's jump right in. This is the week in review. It does start off with a welcome introductory post by myself. Look out for it right down the bottom of the page. They are in chronological order from when they were uploaded. This post is really framing things for where I've come from, the reasons why I put the Frontier Investor together, and what I potentially mean by the frontier of property investment. So when I refer to that, I say we'll come in to a really unique time with what you can do as an investor, what technology can bring to you, the types of research that you can perform, and disruptive elements in the industry. So a lot of the contributors that we've got on board with the Frontier Investor are really disruptive and are doing some amazing things in the industry, in education, in buyers advocacy, ethics, research, helping people source and secure properties, but also on the mortgage side, and being able to open up more competitive products and disruptive methods there, disruptive elements in tenancies, and being able to bring rental products and helping landlords manage properties more effectively, especially with larger portfolios. Really disruptive angles and approaches to the industry. This has all been brought around by technology. And what we're seeing, I don't know if commoditized is probably the right word, but a lot of information that used to be very difficult to obtain, definitely outside the realm of a rookie or a newbie investor. Stuff that was, sales volumes, auction clearance rates, growth, even rental growth, yields for suburbs across the country. 15 years ago when I started investing, it was very difficult to obtain a lot of the advanced metrics, making sure they were live and actually accurate, not 3 months behind or 3 months out of date. They needed to be live to be able to rely on them. Being able to access that information and make decisions on it in a timely manner was very difficult. Technology is allowing us to do that. And what that's doing, it's leveling the gap between newbie and advanced investors, getting people towards the same areas, potentially at the same time. What we need to do is step above that. We need to maintain a challenger attitude and be one step ahead of that new bulk of investors in the market. We need to be going that extra little bit to be able to make sure we've got reliable and consistent returns on investment and not just falling back into the masses. One potential example of that I do use, and I have referred to it in the last few webcasts, so I do apologise for the regular listeners, but Logan was one that 12 months ago, it was on the radar of Ripehouse. We were right in that buying zone, which closed very quickly. We had some large-scale buyers agents. It was in vogue in the media, etc., coming through and buying bulk, wholesale established property through Kingston, Logan Central, even down into Logan Lee and Marsden, etc., taking off a lot of stock out of the market, which really affected the demand-supply equilibrium, but it also really artificially inflated price, decreased days on market, obviously increased sales volumes, but it was all based on this large mass of purchase, and it really affected how we can access the market. To maybe stay that one step ahead, we have to challenge ourselves and really adapt to and embrace technology and disruptive technology to be with that one step ahead. So knowing which street to buy into, knowing how to find properties very quickly from multiple areas across the country, and knowing how to appraise them and negotiate on them very effectively and actually acquire the property. So that's what it's all about, the new frontier of property investment, how we can potentially stay ahead of that curve, and definitely check out that introduction to the Frontier Investor. Moving forward, please feel free to join the conversation. So on every page, you've got a red box on the Frontier Investor. There you can just enter in your email address. You'll receive those weekly digests, the daily digests, private and unique content only for the people on that conversation list. So it is gathering your email there. Also, feel free to jump over to the Frontier Investor at Facebook. Frontier Investor, so it's facebook.com.au/ the Frontier Investor Australia. Get engaged in a conversation. We'll be posting the content regularly to Facebook. That's where we'd like you to start engaging in conversation. So like and share with friends, really get the conversation moving and open it up to as many eyes as we can, so we get the different perspectives and unique outlooks on how to interpret the conversation. Moving right into the first topic, I'm going to go through each one individually. So Corey Batt from Precision Funding. Corey's someone that I've watched and really learnt to respect his opinion and the way that he has a customer focus. So he's always open to providing help and assistance to investors. He's someone that I've looked at back at the old Summersoft Property Forum, which was, I did mention it in my welcome article. 15 years ago, there were rudimentary online forums that investors communicated with. Corey was someone who's always been open to provide really good and valued content. He's got a great article on the Frontier Investor about renovation for revaluation strategy. So doing a renovation revaluing, pulling equity out, and then rinse repeating. So he's going to take some deep dives into how to structure your mortgages to be able to do that effectively. What are some of the catches to do to make sure that you don't get stung and not be able to pull that equity out, making sure you can navigate that terrain. So there's no point in doing a renovation if you're wanting to leverage that extra equity if you can't get that out. So make sure you check that article out there. Richie Muir, next is the legal expert or head legal expert for Law Lab, which is a disruptive conveyancing platform online. He's going into some great detail about how to avoid legal headaches when you're undertaking a property development. So for those of you who may have made a bit of equity or had some really nice growth in, say, the Sydney market as an example, you've got that capital, that equity sitting in that property. You might be wanting to move into some more advanced strategies like development or subdivision. How can you structure your legal work and framework to be able to access finance, to be able to pay and structure and de-risk each stage of that development? So definitely check that article out there. So that's the grouping, that's the theme. Reno or develop some advanced equity creation strategies. 2 pieces of great content to start with there. Jumping across to our next major theme, I've grouped this together in terms of industry observations. So when we start here, the future of credit, we'll come to Dave Ward from First Step Property. Dave's been actually featured on a recent webcast with us here at Ripehouse. His level of research and understanding in key growth markets across the country is second to none. I love the conversations that I have with Dave and how he can offer insights into the on-the-ground analysis, and the level of detail he goes to with his due diligence is phenomenal. He's actually got a very large portfolio himself. He's a great source of knowledge, and his first piece of content is around the future of credit. So how are they changing the way that mortgage and risk is assessed per investor? How are they going to be doing that? How is that going to change, and how you can potentially position yourself to benefit from those changes? We've gone next to Malcolm Gunning, who's the former, most recent president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. Malcolm's got a really interesting article around the re-emergence of commercial buying syndicates in the Sydney market. So he hasn't seen this for around a decade. Families, large groups of friends, etc., drawing together, pooling resources to purchase key commercial properties across Sydney. That's been brought about by changes in zoning in the Sydney market. So they've brought in higher density zoning in and around train hubs within Sydney. That's bringing that viability back to commercial properties, and potentially some land banking elements in these key commercial properties in and around the train station. So Malcolm's talking about how that can potentially be something that you can access by joining forces and creating buying syndicates with other investors, with family members, in a $2 to $3 million range in commercial. So if there's 3 or 4 of you, it's bringing back to investment property, residential type numbers. Some of the things in that article he's talking about is splitting off residential components, then selling down your total investment, and then be left with a commercial element, which generally might have good yields. Really interesting take on that there. Next, we move to the state of the state. So I've talked to Tony College, who's the current Real Estate Institute of Tasmania president. His unique insights about the Tasmanian investor landscape, current state of flux, and how you can potentially leverage that to your advantage. I also spoke with Andrew Crosley from Australian Property Advisory Group. Andrew stands out for his ethics and integrity in the industry, and how he actually stands as a buyer's advocate beside a buyer, one-to-one, works out what they need to do and how they can potentially move into a relevant and appropriate investment. So Andrew's gone through talking about the ethics in the industry, how legislative changes might come into the industry and how it might affect us, and then the direction that the industry is taking as a whole. And then finally, we spoke to Dr. Matthew Bateman from the Property Mentors. He gave some great insight into the current state of flux with the Liberal or Labor camps around negative gearing, but also other maybe not so much talked about policies within the 2 political parties leading into the election, and how that potentially, most importantly, will affect our bottom line as property investors and people holding property. A really nice snapshot. We had some awesome content that's been worked through and provided in this first weekly wrap-up. Moving forward, the next key component is tenants. So obviously with an investment property of any type, tenants are very critical to this deal. Check out content from Zoran Tomic from rent.com.au talking about how to potentially obtain long and successful tenancies. So what are some really key things, small things that we can do right off the bat? And that includes when you're actually advertising for the property to potentially create pride and tenancies that are connected to a property long term and create that stable cash flow for us. Some really interesting insight about techniques that we can potentially employ to give ourselves a better chance of that. Natalie Gray, as a Property Manager of the Year recipient and current property manager, she's got an amazing insight into how she is really driving forward holiday rentals down here in Tassie. All of the concepts that she discusses are equally applicable across the country around tourism or inner city areas. Her article is a great snapshot of the numbers, how you can potentially turn a substandard or just a normal yield number into overall approximately 300% increase above and beyond what was otherwise achievable by leveraging holiday or short-term stay strategies. So really interesting topics there around tenant success. Moving down, this is something we're really proud to bring to you. Something to give a little bit of motivation. It's actually broken into two individual pieces within the content this week. Guy is doing some amazing things in his investment portfolio, up to 35 properties now. I'm not sure if you're on the line, Guy. You can correct me if you're wrong. Yeah, Guy's been doing some amazing things in the last 10 months since he joined Ripehouse back in last June, July. He's actually bought 10 properties using the Ripehouse research platform, annualized growth of 25% across each of those 10 properties. So if you're averaging them all together, the annualized growth on each of those properties is 25%. Absolutely phenomenal numbers. It's not a fluke, because it's the average across each one of those 10 properties. He's been able to leverage Ripehouse research, his really easily repeatable strategy. So Guy's approach is really simple. The psychology of it is allowing him to make clear and concise decisions and remove fear from the equation. We go into a lot of detail about the psychology of how Guy structures his portfolio. Some amazing insight. There's a lot to learn from Guy. He does a great job. I've got the label there obviously wrong, so I do apologise to Guy. Guy's actually from the Training Guys. He's a sales and management coach. He does some amazing things in his day job. So there's some details there about what he does in his day job on those articles. But potentially he uses the psychology of taking action and applies that to his portfolio and really brings things down into simple terms. Yeah, probably a really important point is Guy has a strategy of buying under that 300K mark. So on that portfolio, the average yield that he's now achieving on those 10 properties purchased is 6.25%, which is outstanding, firmly in cash flow positive territory. He's had 25% annualized growth on each of those average of each of those 10 properties. That's constituted over 100% cash on cash return in 10 months on those properties. He's spread his eggs out across the whole of the country, and he uses the Ripehouse research platform to get himself into the key streets in these growth markets, not just the LGA, not just the suburb, but the key streets which are set for imminent growth. So really about to start moving literally from now for the next 6 months. And then you're going to fall back onto the suburb level growth. Then you're going to fall back onto the LGA level growth for the 3 years thereafter. And then you're going to fall back onto the citywide organic growth. So it's really key there to invest in these streets ready to really move. Getting into the next steps, what we're doing in the next week or so, join the conversation. Make sure you do that. Jump onto the page, thefrontierinvestor.com.au. Enter your email address to make sure you're in the conversation, you're inside the loop. Watch out for our next webcast. We will be advertising that now through the Frontier Investor. Make sure you're on there and seeing the recordings posted, and also the letting you know of the next webcast coming through. And make sure to watch out for the daily digest videos. So you do need to check in every day to see those. They won't be held around. It'll only be available and posted on the site to view each day. and also the live stream telecast that we're going to be hosting. So I do hope that's a really nice high-level introduction to the Frontier Investor, what it's all about, and a really nice run-through for what is currently on the platter for today. Yeah, we're going to be doing these videos each week, and this will be packaged up with me talking tomorrow live on the camera. So do watch out for that. I might pop that on pause now. I'll just put things on mute while I change slides back to our main. Okay, I hope you found that beneficial. We've got some questions coming through already. Definitely keep them coming through. Or if you're already doing two things at once and potentially looking at the content at the same time, I don't blame you. But definitely, if you've got any questions in regards to what some of the contributors and the experts in their field are saying, as part of that process, we're talking with them back and forth to develop the content, etc. So I'm across a lot of the concepts. I'm happy to fall on any inquiries. But I'm also happy to field questions in regards to the content that you can see on the Frontier Investor, or any other questions regarding research or suburbs of interest. We've got Kate already asking, how does Guy Williams do what he does? She wants to copy him. I can go into details about his strategy, the nuts and bolts of it, later on in the Q&A session, Kate, if you like. Also, check out his articles. We do go into a lot of detail into exactly what he does. And I think the key to his strategy, Kate, is the psychology behind making decisions and removing fear out of it. He'll focus on lots of small properties, spreading his eggs, but then focusing on the numbers and taking fear and emotion out of the purchase. So if the numbers stack up, treating it as a business decision and taking action. So that's probably the key takeouts from his content and articles, is taking action. Look, before we go on to the second part of this evening, so I am going to be taking into a deep dive analysis. The LGA that has emerged as the winner is the LGA of Brisbane. 30% of you looking and wanting to hear more about Brisbane. Bendigo was emerged quite nicely. Now it's fallen back to 20% of you asking about Bendigo. So I will be focusing tonight on Brisbane. There's a number of suburbs that we could be choosing through there. It's obviously a very large LGA. We can go in a few different directions in terms of inner ring, outer ring, northern quadrant, unit markets, housing markets. I will be jumping into Wavell Heights and Enoggera, which we did cover in the report in more detail. But I will be probably, with Brisbane in particular, raising some concerns around supply side risk in and around some of the suburbs in that northern quadrant, with high density apartment blocks sort of going in. So that will be all part of the discussion. That's the second part of this evening. Just before I go into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about Ripehouse. So Ripehouse is an end-to-end research platform. So it's all based on live data, research and insights that we provide. It's not based on last year's information or last quarter's information. We have to be able to make clear and concise decisions live in real time to get us that one step ahead of the rest of the pack. Ripehouse is a number one choice and chosen by other experts in the field. We've got Guy there as someone who's using Ripehouse really effectively, obviously with 10 purchases in 10 months. Buyers agents, educators and researchers also using Ripehouse in different ways to make informed property decisions. I just wanted to take you through. I need to probably jump in and update with some more recent purchases in the last couple of weeks with people who have been using Ripehouse to purchase. I know I was talking to Ben and Katrina yesterday, who had a couple of really nice purchases. I might move those in there if that's okay. I'll reach out and contact you if you are on the line. But Ross purchased in Moreton Bay back in January. Asking price $319, purchase price after negotiation I actually worked one-on-one with Ross and worked out what potentially the best way to snag this property was. We got it down to 310. Estimated current estimates on this are 335 to 340. It's a really fast-moving market in these key streets, Caboolture South and Morayfield. A lot of heat has come into the market since Ross purchased there. A lot of demand, and now you're seeing overlap. Days on market really low, 3 or 4 investors making offers on similar properties, pushing that 10% growth in short term really quickly. This is a really good example of the types of property that Guy was able to leverage in his 10 from 10, 25% growth. So imminent growth. You can see that heat really starting to come into a property, and you're getting in there just above the curve and trying to get that growth within the first 6 months, then falling back to the suburb level growth out to that 3-year period with the LGA. So you're looking at these growth markets with awesome investment spend. Train, Moreton Bay as an example has got uni, marina, business park, huge population pressure from 375,000 up to 500,000 people. So all of things in a row. In the first few months when you purchase, you want to fall back on the street level demand, then into the suburb, then into the LGA. Then once that's all priced in 5 years' time, people are paying, to live in the area based on all of those things. It's priced into the market. It then falls back to, say, the Brisbane growth curve after that. So it's all about picking these streets and the individual properties that people are demanding in those streets to get that nice hit of growth right off the bat. Another example is for Santh, who purchased a couple of properties down here in Logan. And this was heading towards the end of that optimum purchasing point. This was very soon after this purchase. There was the large buying groups coming through and stripping the good and the bad out of the market. So Vincent was able to get in before that and capitalize from it, negotiated hard. So as soon as those buying groups come through the market, you're not going to be able to negotiate hard on a property and get it down lower than asking, etc. You're going to be potentially offering at asking and potentially having a counter offer up and up. Vincent was able to get in and get under $10,000 under asking. Current equity or current appraisal, based on our opinion, is $310,000. Great yield there, 5.8%. Another couple. So this is one from Guy. This is one of his recent purchases, as dissected in that in our article on the Frontier Investor. A really nice quick hit there of equity, purchased in March, potentially just under 10K of growth already. Another one that's slightly different, Lorraine is using Ripehouse for flipping, renovate for profit. So finding these unrenovated properties in areas that she's going to be able to get in and out of and basically get a premium for the renovation from an owner-occupier. So it's a bit of a different strategy. Ripehouse is equally relevant for renovate for profit strategy. And how to, a slightly different way that you use the software. We can definitely show you how to do that, but it's relevant for capital growth, yield, or renovate for profit strategies. Also finding and sourcing larger blocks. We've got filters and ordering based on block size, zooming in on those larger blocks ready for subdivision and development. I'm saying all this because Ripehouse is an annual subscription service, usually available for $997 per year. So look, as a big thank you for coming along tonight, I really do appreciate you taking your time out. We are going into a second module, that's the case study around the Brisbane LGA. I did want to just cover this off first and just let you know that as a big thank you for tonight, we'd like to offer a saving of $300 off the annual subscription of Ripehouse, bringing that down to $697. Look, just to get based on tonight, and we keep things rolling around here at Ripehouse, this offer is only available until 11 p.m. tonight only. Ripehouse is a subscription service, so once you join the community, we're always trying to adapt and improve the product based on you, the DIY investor. So if you're looking at trying to make clear and concise decisions and stay that one step ahead of the curve, when you jump into the Ripehouse subscription, we've got all of the tools there for you to use, the research platforms, the advice, the Ripehouse University, all of our research reports, etc., at your disposal. And now we've got the Frontier Investor as a key element to this. So the content that's coming through, that's driving the conversations, that's driving the direction of the Ripehouse product, it's all part of doing everything it takes to help you with your next purchase and making sure it's in these streets with that imminent growth and really positioning you to deliver on your strategy outcomes and your targets towards what you're trying to do in property. Look, just to really back this up and make it really clear to you that the Ripehouse subscription is doing everything we can potentially do to help you as an extra bonus, available at www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus right now. Jump across there because we'd love to also extend to you monthly investment group coaching events. So that's every month across the year. Our next one's coming up next week. If you subscribe tonight, you're going to be invited to this private event where we're going to be taking a deep dive analysis with a local area expert in one of our key growth markets. More on that to come. But these events are super important because they gather up everyone together, and we can ask questions from the experts that we bring in who know these areas back to front, who can help us analyse the suburbs and the streets as locals would, and potentially purchase there for amazing success. So that's what it's all about. As a bonus, I'd love to include that for you tonight. Also, to get you moving really nice and smoothly, a free copy of the current April edition of the Ripehouse Pinpoint Predictions Report. A huge amount of detail into our key growth markets. Our team here researched that very thoroughly, and there's a lot of ticks that have to be passed for the LGAs, local government areas, and the suburbs to pass muster and be included. But we do know the month is coming up. So when you're joining and be part of us tonight with this bonus offer, we'd love to include the May edition. So you're going to be having the two to compare, current coming into May, the May edition included as well. So they're usually $97 if you buy them off the shelf. Also, as I mentioned, the Ripehouse Club Access and University Access. So we have tutorial courses, etc., private advanced tuition, etc., in the university courses. So always be looking out there. We've got another module that's about to be rolled out to help you invest and to use the research platforms to be able to engage with the platforms and get the most benefit from it for you. So look, the total bonus value included tonight is $938 above and beyond saving to you, which I'd love to extend as part of this webcast for you. Just so you know, it does expire 11 p.m. tonight. And look, based on your personal circumstances, if you do have current investment properties, in some circumstances, the Ripehouse subscription amount can be classed as a tax deduction off your investment property income, so your current investment property income. But do check with your accountant on that. Based on our advice, in some circumstances, the Ripehouse subscription is a claimable education expense and research expense to actually make that purchase. Look, so jump across to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus, where you can, for that the bonus thank you price of $697 per annum, join us and get access to everything I've just covered there. Look, moving right along, I'm going to jump in now to a case study in the Brisbane LGA. In doing that, I'm going to be taking a holistic view to our research. So the Ripehouse Property Insights platform doesn't just start with a property and tries to gauge value there and leave that property on island without matching that back to what you're trying to achieve and the strategy and results that you're trying to drive. So we take a different approach with Ripehouse. We start with the state. What is the state level research demonstrating to us? Making sure it's giving us some insight, but not falling in love with what we're seeing at the state level. State is too broad, it's too general, as is Sydney. Even now in a slowdown market in Sydney, there's still some areas of great growth potential. So state and city level research is too broad. It's too easy storyline for the media to pick up, and it won't be, definitely won't be storylines that you'd see in the Frontier Investor in terms of making sure each statement is not an assumption, it's not a generalization, it can be backed up with primary sources of research and data, live primary sources of research and data, and not falling back on easy storylines around around state or citywide generalization. So do start with the state, don't fall in love with what you see there. The only information that you can really gauge from state level is property clock, macro property clock, state of the state information. Drive down into the LGA. The LGA is a really convenient number of suburbs. So generally, 20 to 30 suburbs join together to form an LGA. That's a good critical mass to demonstrate movement in a certain direction. You've got policies that are generally coherent and in line at an LGA level. It's a great demonstration of an LGA moving forward together. And then once you find that LGA, making sure you're in the exact suburbs, streets, and then the in-demand properties that are going to really supercharge that LGA level growth. So the LGA may be having a new train, new marina, new business park, new university, IKEA, Westfields moving in. That's going to affect the LGA overall. How do we find the individual suburbs within that LGA that are going to drive growth forward, that are not going to be exposed to new supply, subdivisions, etc., that are going to be in the key sweet spot areas for amenity and people demanding to live there, and then the individual streets and properties in those LGAs that are going to really deliver the growth. So that's what it's all about. Don't focus on any one of those levels in isolation. It needs to be a full picture. What we also talk about is street level analysis. So Guy is a good example potentially of investing in the streets in these suburbs that are set for imminent growth. So where there's really a sweet spot around higher than average rents, higher than average yields, high tenant demand, lots of the in-demand property type, and low public housing. So it's demanding a really broad mix of people wanting to live, rent, and purchase in that street. So if the suburb overall is becoming in vogue, or the LGO overall, it's not going to be treated equally. Just think about things in your own terms. If the suburb that you live in, you know the suburbs, the streets to potentially avoid, the dead spots, that you want to seek out the streets in these suburbs that are positioned for imminent growth and more likely to have that imminent growth than other streets in the suburbs. So that's what it's all about. I'll show you how to quickly find these streets in a moment. When you actually combine all these things together, the Ripehouse sweet spots, and Guy's results are a great demonstration of that. But our research has also shown you'd expect to achieve above and beyond the suburb average overall 21.9% relative growth, above and beyond the rest of the suburbs. So it's Ripehouse sweet spots are generally only 10 to 15% of each suburb across Australia. If you were to invest in that 10 to 15%, as opposed to the remaining 85%, you would expect by average to achieve 21.9% above and beyond relative growth. Just to bring that into real terms, if you take Sydney as a whole, the projected growth over the next 10 years, as an average, it would put an extra $240,000 extra above and beyond growth just for getting that street right, as opposed to the suburb. That's an average figure, so it makes a huge difference. What we're talking about also with the suburbs, I'll take you through now in Brisbane, as the typical versus the growth market. So Brisbane overall is the typical market. How can we find individual LGAs and suburbs within that typical market, the Brisbane market, that are set for above and beyond growth in the short to medium term? So in visual terms, the green area there represents a suburb that is outperforming the remaining typical market. The green equals the profit above and beyond the typical cycle. We're trying to buy here at the beginning of this outperformance, making sure we're not leaving it too late so we can still acquire and buy property and not get caught into a bidding war or waiting for the masses to come ahead. We're really trying to get in to the key buying opportunities in these LGAs. It only opens up for a few months. Even if we're set for 3 years worth of growth in Moreton Bay, as an example, the buying window is only 3 to 6 months. We might be set for growth in the Logan LGA, as an example, for three years in a growth market, but the buying window is only open for a short amount of time. How do we get that right? How do we know when it's closing? Sometimes it's pretty obvious with other investors or lots of interest in particular properties. Days on market very low, 3 or 4 other offers on a property. That's how we can start to tell them. Then we need to move on and be the first movers in other growth markets. So this is what it's all about. Why don't I jump in now and I'll do some street level analysis in the Brisbane LGA. So I won't be a moment. I'll just pop things on mute again and I'll Okay, sorry about that. I'm just a one-man band here in terms of putting the webcast together. It's just literally comes down to holding all the balls up in the air and being in the same dialogue in my head to be able to do all the same things at once. So I do apologise for the jumping back and forth. It does work quite well. I've got it down to a process, but I do apologise about the little breaks. What we're seeing here, let me know if you can't see it coming through. It's the main dashboard page within Ripehouse. Okay, so this is where once you become a subscriber, you can upload your portfolio. You can access negotiated discounted rates from 3.98% on mortgages, as an example. You can receive current on-market estimates for rent and appraised value for each property in your portfolio. Make sure you get involved with that and upload your portfolio. You can scroll down and access private Ripehouse University information. This is where you can purchase or view your currently paid for or free included report. Obviously, I need to purchase that one to be able to view it. This is where you can do all your account maintenance, and you can also access the Ripehouse Pinpoint Concierge service, which is an intensive one-on-one process where you can go through and scour the nation for you and provide properties to you on a platter. So that's all available to you as an annual subscriber. What we're going to do, this is where you drive the software. So if you can remember back to the tour, I won't go into the graphic, but the multiple levels of research that you can perform within Ripehouse, this is where it breaks down. So you can start at the state of the states. This is giving you a live feed snapshot of the data within the platform. What you need to see across Ripehouse is the live visual icon. Whenever you see that, it means that the data associated with this element is live. When I say live, we have search engines going across at 24/7. This is just in answer to your question there, Amit. We are bringing the data together across many different sources, some starting with ABS 2011. In those cases, we're updating that data sets whenever we can manually, in terms of public housing, monitoring LGA policies, updating moving public housing in and out, monitoring these data sets, making sure they're up to date, and then keeping them live through our own data sets. We own all of our data, our database. We can completely control and bring it up to you in live terms. So this is the market change in terms of when you own and you can control the data and the gathering of that data. We can provide it in live terms. We've developed these systems to be able to provide these insights to be actionable and to be up to date. So there's no basing your investment decisions on sales volume increases, as an example, in the previous quarter of 2015 or the first quarter of 2015. Potentially by the time you get that information and digest it in a report or from a secondary source, it's too late to make the decision. The buying window is already closed, or it's becoming very difficult to actually purchase property. That's the difference, I suppose, between a primary and a secondary source. Being able to rely and make decisions based on primary and timely advice. So we can see at a state level, Queensland is here, moving from the recovery into the growth phase. As I say, the state level data is too general. We can see some really quick look information as an average across the state, but it really doesn't mean much. 2% growth, reasonably good yields, really strong sales volumes, etc. in Queensland at the moment. Let's click on Queensland. This is going to take us into the second stage of our holistic view to property investment. It's going to rank each LGA in Queensland. So you can actually do this across the whole country. In this case, it's going out and it's finding the LGA level information for Queensland. It's just taking some time to do this while I'm using the internet connection. What we're going to do, I'm going to skip ahead and just while that's loading, I'm going to jump into a pre-loaded Explore the Nation page. So once we've got down to Brisbane, we need to then identify which suburbs in the Brisbane LGA are set to move and have the imminent growth. What we need to do, once we've identified LGA as an area of interest, we need to then shortlist the individual suburbs within. So I think Brisbane, correct me if I'm wrong, has the most suburbs across the country. Yeah, it's critically important to be able to pinpoint the exact suburbs set for this growth. So in doing that, we've developed a unique visual representation of each suburb, be able to rank and compare like-for-like suburbs at completely different ends of the spectrum in that LGA. So based on this, we're monitoring, gathering sentiment in the media from local area experts, so buyers agents, valuers, real estate institute members. We've got a constant round of interviews that we perform to gather research and expert sentiment opinion. So each suburb is ranked across the country in terms of that sentiment and opinion. Just jumping back over to the LGA level information, which is a good example of that. We gather the sentiment opinion together. If you're to only look at opinion together, Brisbane, City of Brisbane ranks #1 for its LGA across an LGA level across the country. So according to the industry insiders, Brisbane is where things are moving. You can see Logan, Sunshine Coast, Moreton Bay, Cairns, City of Ipswich, all ranked in my recommendations based on the property clock. So we're able to do property clock research. Yeah, when I'm talking property clock, I don't like to, you're having your growth between 9 and 12 o'clock. You've got some reasonable growth between 6 and 9 o'clock. I like to potentially buy between 8 and 10 o'clock on the property clock. Yeah, generally, yeah, between 8 and 10 o'clock gives us a little bit of surety in terms of the market is starting to move and grow. You've still got some upside towards the market peak. I like to do a health check. We do LGA level health checks. Are sales volumes nice and healthy and at a high point in the cycle? Are days on market accessible and potentially at a low point in the cycle? And are we seeing really nice healthy yields in the suburb or the LGA? That's really important because if yields, if rent per week are increasing, lots of people are demanding to live there, pushing rents up, but prices haven't started to move yet. Typically, we'll see yields at a high point in the cycle. So that's a really important one for me. We can see we can quickly filter and zoom in on the key LGAs in the state. City of Brisbane is one of those. That's why it's in the report. When we go into the next level, you can see I've got a filter on this page already set that's only going to show me suburbs in the Brisbane LGA, and they rank based on the different metrics. So as I mentioned, we've got opinion, we've got suburb data-based metric health, we've got interest. This is a really key metric unique to Ripehouse. We've got a really large number of investors using the platform, monitoring the momentum. So the interesting relationship between the metrics and the data showing one thing, the researchers and media sentiment catching on, and then investors coming to the party. So we want to try and get in there as the investor momentum is growing. Potentially not when it's a lot of heat in the market. We want to be able to invest in the suburbs in the key Ripehouse sweet spot streets and target the on-market properties that deliver the greatest demand and potential growth. So we need to see high investability, and we like to see reasonably healthy income. So are yields high? Are yields high in relative terms to other suburbs? Do we have low vacancies and good rental volumes? So well, that's the assessment. We can align ourselves to different shapes. So we have different strategies down the side which relate to different suburbs shapes. Do you want to get right in before the curve and beat the experts or researchers or media? Do you want to wait until you see investors coming on board until you purchase? You can affiliate with a different shape and track that way. But let's jump into Enogra. I'll do some street level analysis page. Here you can really get to know the suburb as a local would. There's a huge amount of research that you can conduct on this page. I could spend an hour going through it all. You can see all current for rent properties, all current sold properties going back 12 months listed on the map here. You can compare suburb to suburb over here on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can compare Enogra to its neighbouring suburbs based on yield, occupancy type, property types, rent. You can see Enogra is quite dark red here and quite high yield comparing to its neighbours. Lots of suburb level analysis you can do there. The real gold is this street level analysis you can do. So on the left-hand side, you can see exactly where public housing is. So 30% public housing, a definite no-go zone there. You can see where acceptable levels of public housing, anything potentially under 15% belongs. Each of the red icons on the map are a current on-market property. So Ripehouse acts like a search engine as Google would. It goes across the internet and tracks listings like Google, brings them together as a shows them, displays them on a map there for you to view. when you bring all this together, and you can remember those 5 elements that constitute a Ripehouse sweet spot, you can go on, you can apply those all to the map, one to one, higher renting areas, etc., the darker purple areas, or you can go in and do a predetermined Ripehouse sweet spot strategy. So you can adjust the tolerances for any of these metrics and display only those street areas that fall inside those tolerances, or you can select the predetermined strategy, and it will show you the exact streets to invest in within Enoggera to generate that Ripehouse sweet spot growth. You can see the in-demand property type of 3-bedroom houses. So you can see 33 properties currently on the market. You can filter them based on discounting amount. One property's been on the market here for 62 days and already showing distress signals of 6% discounting. Or you can filter only properties currently on the market in the sweet spots. Currently the in-demand property type is houses. I only want to display those. Now we can do some property level valuation and appraisal. Lots of contracts already out. We can see properties. We can rank them based on price. We can then click on each property and view their details. Sometimes you see high days on market numbers like this one. It potentially has been on the market, taken off the market, and then relisted without a sale in between. Therefore, we determine that is actually one sales campaign that's been compromised, that may have been an error. They've taken off the market and put it back on again. You can see images for the property, thumbnail images. You can see key property information. We do automatic property condition assessment using a unique artificial intelligence algorithm that monitors property condition and tries to predict it. This one is, I definitely agree with, is in good condition. You can see the full listing history, suburb level information, area level information at the street level. You can go away and it will gather together comparable data and provide to you an ordered list of the top 5 comparables. You can remove one of these comparables if you disagree with it. It will replace it with the next highest, most likely comparable based on condition, recency of sale, land size, bedroom, house type, etc., and that automatically assessed condition. It will then gather those together and provide a market appraisal. It will show how that appraisal is potentially going to be weighted based on what is in and around that street area. So it shows the final appraisal price of this property at 625, way above asking. Take the time to gather and vet those comparables. It will give estimated rent and yield. And if you've got any doubts that the appraisal might be above or below, you can click on the Ask Ripehouse button. That will come back to us with a pre-filled Twitter request, and we will gather that as soon as possible and get back to you. So as you can see, every single point through that funnel is covered off. I've used Enoggera here as an example. This is featured in our report. Do look for suburbs in and around Enoggera down towards the northern quadrant of Brisbane CBD itself for great demand supply conditions. Do watch out for supply side risk. So there's lots of high density stuff going in. Probably that 10 kilometre band, we see a lot of really positive buyer signals through the Ripehouse data at the moment. Right across to Nunda, Chermside, Wavell Heights, they're all showing really nice, strong demand supply conditions. So that can all be tracked using the Ripehouse data sets, and potentially the radar chart page will be the best to shortlist and find suburbs in and around there, demonstrating really nice growth characteristics. So yeah, one thing that I really would focus on with buying in the Brisbane LGA is supply side risk coming into the market and really flattening the growth outcomes for established property. So one thing to be careful of. I'll pause things there and really delegate to the Q&A session. If you'd like me to take a deeper dive into parts of the Brisbane LGA, it might be more subjective, and I can do that one-on-one with you. Just let me know. I'm switching back over to the other slides now. Let me know if you're having trouble seeing them, but I'm going to skip through to the Q&A section now. Do let me know, because I wanted to just reiterate the big thank you tonight for coming along, and that special bonus thank you I'd love to offer. Jump across to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus to be able to secure the special gift offering at that annual subscription price of $697. So traditional investment searches, doing things differently, potentially not using technology or adapting to the changing landscape, the new frontier in property investment, how you used to do things or things have been traditionally done, and how Ripehouse can change the way that we potentially search for and purchase our next investment property. So it's all about timing the market, avoiding dead spots in any suburb across the country. So understanding these suburbs as locals potentially would, and avoiding those poor locations, matching the suburb, matching the property to the suburb and the suburb to your strategy, and not forcing your strategy on suburbs, not forcing your strategy onto a property and making it work. It's really getting the end-to-end picture nice and consistent. And it's about accessing the nation and giving yourself the best opportunity to have outstanding returns. Just going back on a really quick summary again, the annual subscriber, so the Guy Williams case study, just reiterating those key points there, 25% annualized average return on his last 10 property purchases in the last 10 months. They were brought for imminent growth. It's a long-term play. Guy's been investing for over 20 years. He's got 35 properties in his portfolio. It's all about buying small, under 300K is his strategy. It has to cover costs in terms of yield. It de-risks things for Guy if he knows that he's going to be having his expenses paid for by the tenant from day one. So he has a high priority towards higher yields. His average yields on those 10 properties is 6.25%. So an outstanding example of how we can really get moving and make clear and concise decisions. Just also reiterating a final point before we jump into Q&A. It's all delegated back to our premier research publication, which is monthly. It's usually around 100 pages of really in-depth information. So I'll hold your hand through the state, the LGA, the suburb, the street, and the property. I'd love to include that to get you started. The April edition right now with the subscription, the annual subscription, and then when the May edition comes out in the next week or so, we'll be including that as part of tonight's special offer. If you wanted to jump in to lock that in once again, and finally, www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. We do use Stripe for our payment processing. It's best in market, completely secure between Stripe and yourself. We don't hold the credit card details. It's between you and them. The incredible security between you two. There's live integrated chat support on every page within Ripehouse, or you can jump on the 1300 number or email support at any time. We're here to hold your hand. We're here to work with you and make sure your next property investment really kicks some goals for what you're trying to achieve. So, look, thank you so much for coming along. We've gone slightly over time already, but I will keep the line open and the floor open for any questions now. If you don't want to stick around for the Q&A, I really appreciate your time coming along and getting involved in some of the research we're doing in the community and content that we're putting out there for you to digest. So jump over to thefrontierinvestor.com.au, get involved in the conversation. If you don't want to stick around for Q&A, until next time, thank you so much. For those of you sticking around, I'll pop things on mute for one moment, a couple of minutes. I'll gather towards the questions, keep them coming in. I'll gather them all up and start getting to them one at a time. So on the other side of this, thank you. Okay, thanks for sticking around. Keep the questions coming through. I'll get to them one at a time, starting, as I can sort of gather them. I'll start with you, Amit, talking around how to find development houses. So yeah, properties with subdivision potential. It comes down to sort of two sides. So are you looking at the deal itself, potentially the biggest bang for your buck in terms of that subdivision, and then selling once complete? Selling that project once complete, or are you looking to hold long term? So buy, renovate, subdivide, develop, and then hold that property. So if you're looking at holding longer term, you're having to delegate and not delegate, I suppose, but be dependent on the capital growth of the suburb overall. So you're making money on the front end, and you're also making money on the back end through capital organic growth in the suburb. So if that's the case, I'll be delegating first to growth markets. Starting your research with just a normal capital growth strategy, trying to potentially get into these markets before investor interest is too high. Buy, subdivide, hold. Thanks, Amit. So making sure you're into these markets before there's too much investor interest, so you can still pick through, find the key suburbs, streets, sweet spot streets within, and then you've got first eyes or less investor interest, less developer interest in the larger subdivision size blocks. Coming through Morayfield as an example, it's quite difficult to find larger blocks in the key sweet spot streets. You've got larger blocks in owner-occupier enclaves, in large acreages, etc., away from the key amenities. In Morayfield, it's a very diverse and broad suburb, so you can go and buy larger blocks as an example. But the key is buying them in the key streets for growth, and that will support your subdivision and the new properties that you'll put on them. So it's all about finding the streets. Being able to get in and acquire the properties effectively, especially with these subdividable blocks, you're going to have a lot of interest from more advanced or professional investors. You can filter, jump on. I haven't demonstrated the software tonight. It is there is functionality and pages for annual subscribers, which is not covered in the webcast, but I can flick you through a recording, and I'm on hand to support you with the pages where you can actually join together the different suburbs. So you can pick 3 or 4 suburbs from anywhere across the country, bring them together. They are the suburbs that you're tracking and monitoring. It will then scrape and find all properties on the market in those sweet spot areas that are in demand, and you have your minimum block size preset. So it will only show those properties that tick all of the boxes there. Yeah, so in terms of flipping functionality does sometimes help a bit in terms of finding. Look, it's probably 2 different things. So flipping is looking for sale. You want to be able to get in and out of the sale. You want to be able to renovate for profit. So you want to have a high price disparity, but you're not really caring on the capital growth outcomes longer term. It's all about flipping and forgetting. So you're looking at markets that have strong concentrations of owner-occupiers, large price disparity, lots of houses that are primed for renovation, and you can get in and out of. So it's a little bit different to the hold strategy. You probably go from different directions. We can cover all that off in our in chat or personal email. You've got my email there. I'm happy to have an ongoing conversation with you. So let's just talking about the yearly membership. It's $697 per year. That is ongoing. Once you lock in that price, it stays at that forever. That includes everything that you see and as covered today. It does get you off and moving with the 2 research reports included. That is an extra and separate price. So a lot of value included here. It's designed for when you're purchasing. It might be every 6 months, coming in, getting the research report, starting off that process again, maintaining the market awareness and the educational awareness through the university, and also things like the Frontier Investor. As soon as you know you're ready to purchase, coming in, getting up to speed. It's usually a 4-week process, researching, understanding, dissecting, finding individual properties, starting to make offers to purchase. It can happen that quickly when you're making decisions, clear and concise decisions based on live data. I hope that answers your question there, Scott. Sorry, Inga has had problems with picture quality at times. It may be down to your internet connection. I'm not sure if lots of you have had similar issues. There will be a recording being sent out to those of you who are attended tomorrow. Also, Andrew is talking about the sources So as I say, Ripehouse is a search engine. We go across the internet and bring listings together for you. We're also gathering our own data sets within our own team. So things like crime data, we have to normalize that data across the whole country. So we have regular processes in place to be able to go out, access that information. That's a really good example because New South Wales is awesome with its crime data, but Tasmania not so much. So crime data in Tasmania, we actually had to go to the source. The only source we could find was academic papers and sources to extract that information and normalize it. So we maintain all of our own data sets. We own that, and that therefore we can make real-time decisions and advise and provide real-time data to you. Kate was asking, she would like to know what Guy Williams does and copy him. He's been incredibly successful in what he does and how he does it. He has a very simple formula. He just repeats it over and over and over and over again. He removes fear and emotion from the equation. He looks at the numbers for that property and makes it a business decision. He just plugs in those properties under 300K, cash flow positive in growth markets. He uses Ripehouse to really pinpoint the exact property, the streets, the suburb within to set for imminent growth, and do the final part of his research. So great at using the software. He doesn't do anything different to other people using the software. He just gets in and finds the suburb. He applies the Ripehouse sweet spots. He does a property level filter. Only shows those properties that are on the market. Guy is an expert negotiator. I think we'll have to touch base with him and build out a content piece around his negotiation skills. He does look for properties that have been on the market for longer periods of time. He finds the best ones to negotiate hard on and get those yields up. Look, lots of you are asking about different areas, Bega, Perth, City of Okaparinga. I am aware of time, so I'm happy to engage if you want to jump in, and I'm happy to talk to you about those areas one-on-one. Yeah, there's a lot of subjective. I can sit online, and I'm happy to engage with you one-on-one with those questions afterwards. In terms of getting the best bang for buck with everyone, I am aware of time, but look, why don't we? I am available. That's my email address: jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au. I can stick around now into the chat area, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming along tonight. As a big thank you, to reiterate once again, you can access the amazing value via www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. Let's get moving together. Let's stay ahead of the curve in the new frontier for property investment. I'm really excited, and once again, thank you for joining us.